This is Kathy from Gadget Stop 321, and in today's video I'm going to be taking a look at Colorverse Dark Energy. I'll test it in a variety of pins and nib sizes ranging from a Pilot Extra Fine to a 1.5 stub nib. And the first pin I'm going to use is my Pilot 78G Plus with an extra fine steel nib. And so far so good. This feels nice. Now, the judgment I use of whether, because there is feedback on this, the judgment I use whether I consider a extra fine nice, or sometimes I just put not scratchy. If I wouldn't mind writing an entire page, this A6 page, with this nib and ink combination, then I consider it nice. If I wouldn't mind just writing an entry in a planner, like a sentence or two, then I'll say, well, it's not scratchy, but I wouldn't want to write an entire page. But this was nice. I wouldn't mind writing an entire page. It's a pretty extra fine line. The readback on it is borderline, but it was pleasant to write with. Next, I have my Sailor Pro Gear Slim with a fine nib. Let me make sure I'm in focus. And this isn't bad either. The feedback, it's quite a bit wetter. And the readback is much better. The feedback is not much different than that extra fine. So I'm going to go ahead and say this was nice. I do prefer the fine over the extra fine, just for the readback is a little bit bolder. Next, I've got my Platinum 3776 with a medium nib. I like this as well. I'm going to put nice on this. There's some feedback, but just enough that I like it. All right. Next, I've got my Kaweco Perkeo. Also has a medium nib. And you can see that this Kaweco medium is noticeably broader than the Platinum medium. I'm going to put nice on this one also. Sometimes the Kaweco will end up being noticeably smoother just because it's a little bit broader nib, but in this case these two felt about the same. Let's see. Next, I've got my Pilot Metropolitan with a cursive medium nib. Now, this is noticeably smoother. All right, that wasn't bad. And finally, I've got my Jinhao X750 with a 1.5 stub nib. This is very satisfying. All right. Now, I'm looking on my viewfinder. This is coming across much more, it's leaning toward orange. And in real life, it's got like a deep, it's a reddish or a brownish red. It's got a little bit of brown to it, but almost like it's got a little pink to it. I'm not seeing the orange in real life that I'm seeing on the viewfinder. One thing I'm going to start including in my description of my videos aren't that great for seeing the color of the ink. It's better for just seeing how the ink performs in different nibs and on different papers. If you really want to see the color of the ink, do a Google search and you'll be able to see. I think Mountain of Ink has a really great blog, and different bloggers, you'll be able to see a better color corrected image of the ink. And your retailers like Goulet pens and whatnot. Okay, so here it is on my ARC notebook, and like I was mentioning earlier, this one, the extra fine, I put that it was not scratchy. Putting an entry in a planner would be fine, but writing a page this size, I wouldn't enjoy it with this nib. Now, the Pro Gear Slim was nice, but there was a notable amount of feedback. Not noticeable. Several of these had, like the 3776 and the Perkeo had noticeable feedback, but this was notable. If you're not crazy about feedback, you probably wouldn't like this combination. I didn't mind it. I thought it was nice. The Platinum 3776, I think, was my favorite nib on this paper. The Perkeo wasn't bad either, but notice the stubs, they're having trouble, both of them, having trouble grabbing the paper. And even on my little swirlies, I don't know how else to say it other than it's having trouble grabbing the paper. And you didn't get that satisfying feeling that I mentioned here when it's just laying down a nice wide swath of ink. Now, on the Rhodia paper, again, the extra fine I put was not scratchy. Same results on the Sailor Pro Gear Slim. It felt a little dry and feedbacky. It's like, it wasn't unpleasant, but it was just, there was more resistance on the paper. It didn't make it unpleasant though, unless that's the kind of thing you don't like. But the 3 mediums were nice. I really enjoyed them. Now, on the Platinum, I did get a hint of that dry feeling with a little bit of feedback, but with it having a wider nib than the Pro Gear Slim, it was much more enjoyable to write with. Now, my Kaweco Perkeo was noticeably smoother on this paper. It was very smooth. The Metropolitan was nice, had a little bit of that dry feeling, but not enough to make it unpleasant. And then my 1.5 stub was very, very enjoyable to write with. And on the one, it put down enough ink. I think you can see a little bit of sheen glinting on there. But the sheen is not noticeable on this paper. And it wasn't noticeable on the ARC paper either. I was really surprised with my results on my 20-pound copy paper. Normally, most inks are just unpleasant to write with on copy paper. You write and you can feel the ink spreading instantly. I didn't get that sensation with this ink. The extra fine was actually nice to write with. It was very pleasant, and so was the Pro Gear Slim. The Platinum 3776, normally on 20-pound copy paper, it's just wet enough that it's unpleasant because the ink is spreading and it feels like you're writing with a magic marker, but it was nice. And if you compare it to the Perkeo puts down a wider line because it's a German nib, so it's wider than the Japanese medium. And so it just puts down a wider line naturally. But normally on 20-pound copy paper, they look the same because the 3776, the ink will spread, but it didn't. And let me see. You don't get, even on the wetter nibs, you don't get that little bit of feathering. This is a nice ink to use on poor quality paper. Now, you're not going to see the sheen that this is kind of known for, but I enjoyed using it on the poor quality paper. Now, it does bleed through a little bit, and most fountain pens, you're not going to be writing on both sides of copy paper. But let me let you see it compared. Let's see. Here's the Colorverse Dark Energy, and here's a few of the previous samples I've done. Compared to those, it's noticeably better. In fact, yeah, just it being a lighter colored ink, it did a little bit better than the Noodler's Black. Okay. And in the Leuchtturm, we start to see the sheen. You can see it there on the C. It looks like it might be a gold or a green sheen. Maybe it's a little more green. Nice. Okay, and finally on the Tomoe River paper. Let me see up here in the title. You can see there the sheen. It stands out more. This first line was the 1.5 stub, and this is the Pilot Metropolitan cursive medium. Now, the cursive medium is not a very wet writer, so the sheen is not as prominent, but it is there. This was just a nice ink to write with in a variety of nibs. I'm kind of a fan of it now. All right. If you found this video helpful, please give me a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to my channel.